Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly at tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing the Oris Divers 65 Chronograph, a diving chronograph that is 43 millimeters in diameter in steel, 16.5 millimeters thick, and 52.1 millimeters from lug to lug with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, the watch wears well, though broad. At over 52 millimeters from lug to lug, you probably don't want to wear this watch on a wrist smaller than mine. So 16 centimeters circumference wrists and up should be just fine. It is fairly thick. You should be able to fit it under a jacket cuff, though, because so much of the thickness is the sapphire that a cuff of reasonable height should slide up and over. Now, the bracelet is built a little bit like a lot of modern Tudor Black Bay bracelets to look as though it is a vintage rivet style. Well, it's not, and you can see here we have pins and sleeves on the removable links. You can also see that we have a half link built in on each side, and then inside the clasp we have these 5 divots drilled through. And you can use your strap tool to dismount the spring bar and move the bracelet in and out to fine-tune the fit. So you've got 2 different sizes of link, and then you've got those 5 divots. A thick gauge steel here, single fold, deployant clasp. It is a twin trigger release, so you have to press those twin triggers to release it. There's a little bit, I emphasize, of taper to the bracelet, which is upscale, and a conforming end link to better integrate the bracelet into the case. We have the look of a vintage watch. It is, after all, inspired by a 1965 Oris dive watch. We have a polished case flank. We have large angular integrated lugs. You can see the lug hoods are satinated. We have vintage style pump pushers, and although the crown does look a little bit vintage in profile, it is a screw-down crown. Now, the watch is not excessively depth rated. It is a 100-meter diver with a unidirectional bezel, so it qualifies, but it's not what you're going to wear if, for example, your normal equipment is some sort of gas escape valve hardcore dive watch. This is for those who scuba dive, who wreck dive recreationally. It is a watch that is a diver, but maybe not the hardest of hardcore divers. That said, we do have a lovely bronze bezel here that is a 120 click. Let's hear the ratchet. And because of the 120 click action, you can place it quite precisely, lining it up with the minute hand. So now you can time 2 events, one with the chronograph, one with the bezel. We have an anodized aluminum bezel insert here, and then a dramatically domed sapphire that's designed to look like a 1965 plexi. The dial's a bit of a chameleon. At times it looks almost blue, but officially Oris calls this a black gloss dial. We have a vintage style Fotina print and lume, though you will see when the lights go out, this particular Fotina glows exceptionally well. We even have a lumed bezel pearl and lumed sub-registers. And it's actually good to have a lumed constant seconds hand so you know that your dive watch is operating. If you're using the dive bezel to time your dive, it is good to know whether the watch is operating, and a seconds hand tells you that more readily than a minutes hand. Now, I do like the upscale use of applique indices here. This watch is vintage inspired. Oris could easily have gone with printed features like the original. Not the case. Oris went a little bit upscale, so this watch is vintage inspired, but it doesn't feel cut rate. I should also mention that the sub-registers are sunken. The watch has a nice twin register symmetry to it. Take note, there is no date on this dial. The movement is a Sellita SW510, which is to say it's Sellita's version of a Valjoux 7750 with unidirectional automatic winding, a 48-hour power reserve, a hacking or stop seconds function. It beats at 8 beats per second, pivots on 27 joules, and it has a cam and oscillating pinion. So a cam system is an alternative to a column wheel that's a little bit more shock tolerant and frankly a little bit cheaper to build. But when well tuned, it can be just as crisp to the touch as a column wheel, and this one is. Now, what I really like is that the 7750 has always been a bit different than other chronographs in that it uses an oscillating pinion. This is a type of lateral clutch, but it uses a very small driving pinion. As a result, when you push the chronograph button and you hold it, There's almost no jump to the seconds hand. It's almost completely seamless like a vertical clutch. Oscillating pinions are considered to be a little bit exotic, and you typically see them on haute horlogerie watches, which is really cool because this is anything but an exclusive high horology timepiece. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.